Good afternoon. How are you? Well, Thomas Jefferson says we got a day that the temperature is 65 degrees, the humidity is 36, and the wind is at 11. And while there is a breeze that you can feel now, there was some very strong breezes knocking the trees around when I started. So we're doing better. We've come to a point where we're now discussing not just democracy, but who would be our commander-in-chief and what could we expect? And there are a lot of publications that drill down and talk about these things. Now I am feeling the wind, so I apologize if the sound is catching up on the mic. One of the magazines I like is Foreign Affairs. It's not always balanced, but if you have a point of view, then you can compare it to what you think makes sense. It's one of the publications I can recommend you read. Now you have to realize that when I was at Columbia undergraduate, I was getting copies of the Congressional Record delivered to me. It didn't cost much, and all these things. And I would read them, and I had piles of these things. And people who came to what passed for my small apartment near Columbia, my rent control apartment, was filled with these papers. So keep that in mind when I recommend something to read. So Foreign Affairs, I think, is a good publication. It gives balance to other things I read and hear. And the current issue, which is the reason I'm mentioning it, is about the return of total war. Now, when I say the issues about that, there's only one of the articles is about that, but it's the first one, and you may be able to get it online if you want to read it for yourself. But what it talks about is what war has been like, how it's changed, what has been the continuum. And I think it's important that we think about it a little bit because it informs us what's at stake if we have a commander-in-chief who A, doesn't listen to anyone, B, doesn't know anything, and C, finally wants to be a dictator unrestrained by the normal accidents of public life. And when I say accidents, I mean, the push and the pull, the advice. The good advice changes your opinion or modifies it or gives it nuance. So how has war changed? The Cold War was a period in which deterrence kept us from blowing each other up, and there wasn't really state wars. In the 90s, coalitions formed among the different states, and that presided over some sense of how we could manage, maintain, and contain all-out war, if you will. Then after 9/11, we had this period of terrorism. It didn't seem to be state action, or at least there was deniability. Asynchronous attacks, that is to say, where we're not prepared to defend, that's where terrorists strike. Now, the latest chapter, which has sort of taken us back in time, is 2022, when Putin decided to basically invade Ukraine. Now, had his prognosis been correct, that he could finish that war in a short period of time, then perhaps we wouldn't be having this discussion and we wouldn't have this concern about our president. But what happened is the last time we had Trump, and I'm not hoping that we ever have him again, but the last time he had a chance to say anything about these things is he invited, well, Putin really to do what he did in 2022, because he was assailing NATO. He was assailing anyone who would resist his strongmen, if you will. And so in a way, he promoted a world condition that favored Putin taking a chance. Now, what Putin didn't count on was that there would be ways to resist the attack, and thus the war continues even until now. And Zelensky has crossed borders to attack back into Russia, and people like Trump, not elected, have said things like he could settle it. Yes, he would give away part of Ukraine to Putin, and that's how he would settle it. So this is not the isolated end of the discussion we have on the table, and it is distressing to American citizens. We have on the table what's going on in the Middle East, in Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Iran. We also have to look at China's relationship with Taiwan. Is that ever going to boil up into something? We can't ignore the fact that North Korea has sent troops to Russia. Are these for military games? Nor can we ignore the technologies and so forth that affect us in this day and age. I realize as I'm saying this sounds pretty serious, but I think it is. And so, for example, what's different now as compared to earlier war? We have AI. And see, the thing about AI that we're not clear about is it's based on complicated programming, if you will. And what its real strength is that when a computer has a direction, it can do it quicker and repeatedly in a way that no one human can do it. So that's part of the concern about AI. Also, we have drones. They've gotten very sophisticated. They're used as assassination techniques, have been since Clinton, certainly. There is what we're doing in space. Are we making that another way to attack from the skies above us, the earth below? Wars now, sure, they happen on the land and the air. But with the weapons we have, there's also the problems at sea. Mahan was M-A-H-A-N, was a strong supporter of sea power to determine who the leading nations were. And I'm not saying that what he said some time ago applies the same way today, because the technologies have changed. And the staying power and the ability to shoot at great distances and to stay under water and to avoid detection, all of these things happen. So the questions we have are, will deterrence work? Will we be able to negotiate ourselves in such a fashion that we have a Cold War-like stalemate? And who is best to lead us without burying us all? Now, by these itemized suggestions I've made, we know that it's not Trump. But the nation is so evenly divided, almost as if an unconscious electorate is afraid to go in any direction and wants there to be a stalemate. Except who inhabits the West Wing will determine how much more active and in the wrong direction we're going. Now, right now, one of the important polls they're taking is, are we on the right or the wrong track? And 77% says we're on the wrong track. And what is that about? I think what that's about is the distrust of government is enormous. And that's a predicate to successful anarchy, revolution. But on the other hand, we are the supporters of a republic with leaders chosen by the people But it depends on those leaders we choose doing what they say. And they haven't. And you can name the issues, and you can name the decisions and the nodal points that have put the credibility of our government at risk. And ironically, the Republicans holding their breath and then pointing at the Democrats saying they're not doing anything, when the Republicans basically have the control to stop things, if not to promote anything. So, where are we? One of the things we have to keep in mind is that more important for the average voter than anything else is the name recognition of the candidates. Now, you could say everybody knows who they are because we know who they are, but we're somewhat obsessive followers of politics and of the future that we can expect. And I have from time to time given talks about what are the factors in a campaign. And one of them I found is name recognition, because it's an easy way for a voter to choose. And I don't know what the percentage is now, but it was like in the 70s and 80s in some elections when I looked at it years ago. And I don't doubt that it's similar now. And when we ask what is Trump doing with the crazy things, he does them in such fast succession, and the responders do nothing to punish him for these. And so he gets noticed, and like a car crash by the side of the road, he entertains some, and so he dwells unconsciously deeper in the mind, like you might buy soap suds. Selling soap, selling bile, selling hate, selling insecurity, selling fear, selling discrimination, selling incompetence. That's what Trump represents. So, what's our answer? Our answer is Beyonce in Houston for Kamala Harris and Tim. That's part of the answer. It is large names and entertainers catching the eye of the public. But there's also content. We spoke, apologies for compounding some errors yesterday, but we spoke about John Kelly's October surprise. And a week after Milley had said what he had to say about Trump's abilities and his ideological preference for fascism. I don't think we mentioned Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, who also has attacked Trump, and Mark Esper, former Defense Secretary. And then there are the Republicans coming out against Trump in addition. And Kamala Harris is going to give a closing to those in America who still listen to what matters in the issues. And she's going to discuss why their team and why not Trump. Now, some people are at the point where they say the polls don't matter. They matter on some level because we fixate on them. We don't know if they're fair. We wonder how they could be accurate. There are some people saying that the polls for, say, the 6 battleground states are very close, but they're so close, all of them could be blown out for one candidate or another. And the commentary is not who that one candidate will be. So, what have I done in these wandering remarks? Through our garden of falling leaves and changing colors and surprising winds, like those that turn around us in the tumult that has become the 2024 election campaign. And the answer is to compare it, without trivializing it, something like the competitions we had when we were kids. We knew we were within the target of winning, say, in some competition or other. And we didn't know if we would win, but we did believe that if we didn't give our all, leave it all on the field of competition, we wouldn't have a choice. So that's what we have to keep in mind. We have to keep in mind that what we can do, if there's anything left for us to do between now and the election and the days perhaps afterwards, to do it. And so those are my observations for today, and with any luck I'll be out here tomorrow in the Cathedral of Trees to talk some more. All the best. Bye-bye.